Black executive is disregarded and humiliated in front of everyone during a meeting, but when he finally reveals his identity, he leaves everyone shocked and speechless. Michael Carter stepped into the sleek building of the multinational technology company, his heart racing with a mix of determination and anxiety. The environment was modern, with glass walls and minimalist decor, but the atmosphere was thick with competition. He observed some colleagues chatting in small groups, their laughter say. As he walked by, he felt the disdainful and curious gazes, as if his presence was an intrusion into an exclusive club. "Look who's here," commented one of the executives, Brad, with a sarcastic smile. "I hope you have better plans today than in the last meeting." The statement was accompanied by muffled laughter, and Michael forced himself to maintain his composure. He took a deep breath and moved on, ignoring the comment. Inside, a voice echoed, "You're here on merit, Michael. Don't let them bring you down." As he entered the meeting room, Michael positioned himself far from Bradley Miller, his declared rival. Bradley, a tall, blonde man, always seemed to take sadistic pleasure in destabilizing him. The meeting began and presentations were made. Michael seized the moment to share his ideas for a new project that would promote diversity and inclusion within the company. He felt nervous, but his passion for the cause drove him forward. "We need a more diverse team that reflects the society we serve," Michael asserted, looking into the eyes of the managers around him. "This would not only make us more innovative, but also improve our image in the market." However, as soon as he finished, Bradley interrupted with a malicious smile. "Diversity, huh? How about we focus on results instead of turning the company into an inclusion club? You know, not everyone needs a special program to succeed." Bradley's tone was disdainful, and he turned to the audience seeking support. "It's always easier to laugh than to reflect, isn't it, Bradley?" Michael replied, trying to keep calm. "But the truth is, diversity isn't just a matter of policy, it's a matter of justice and opportunity." The room fell silent, but the tension was palpable. Rebecca Collins, the CEO, sat at the back, watching the interaction with a neutral expression. When Michael looked at her, he hoped for a sign of support, but she merely shook her head and turned her gaze away, as if she were more interested in her phone than in the discussion. After the meeting, Michael left with a heavy heart. He felt defeated, as if every effort he made to promote diversity was being underestimated by those who should support him. Walking down the hallway, he sat on a bench trying to organize his thoughts. Then his colleague Sophia appeared with an encouraging smile. "Hey Michael, you were amazing today. Don't let what Bradley said get you down," she said, sitting beside him. "Thanks, Sophia. It's just that sometimes I feel like I'm fighting a losing battle." "They don't care about the issues that really matter," Michael replied, looking at the ground. "You need to remember that your fight is bigger than this. You're inspired by something real, and that's more powerful than any bad joke," she insisted, lightly touching his arm. "And I'm with you. We're not alone in this." Sophia's words brought a small relief to Michael's heart. He knew that the struggle for justice and equality was tough, but he also knew that every step forward was a step in the right direction. With a nod, he stood up, determined to continue his journey and refused to let negativity bring him down. Michael headed to the company's break room, where fluorescent lights illuminated the small, cozy space. But the mood was anything but welcoming. The aroma of fresh coffee lingered in the air, but he couldn't focus on the taste. As he served himself, his eyes fixed on a group of colleagues chatting in a corner. Their laughter was muffled, yet Michael still felt the tension in the air. It was as if he were invisible, a shadow passing by unnoticed. Sophia entered the break room and noticed Michael's distant expression. She approached him and with an encouraging smile said, "Hey, you okay? It looks like the whole world is weighing on your shoulders." Michael sighed, releasing some of the emotional burden he carried. "Just another day, Sophia. The same game, the same jokes, you know how it is." "I know," she replied, her tone serious, "but you can't let them bring you down. You have something valuable to offer. Diversity and inclusion are essential." "I wish the board thought that way," he said, looking down. "When I present my ideas, it's like I'm talking to walls. Bradley keeps making jokes and they laugh. It's frustrating." Sophia tilted her head, observing him with empathy. "You're not alone, Michael. Your voice matters and I support you. The fight for diversity starts with people like us who care." Michael nodded, feeling a bit more empowered by her words. The conversation was interrupted when a group of managers entered the break room, laughing and sharing stories. Bradley, as always, was at the center of attention, his sarcastic tone resonating effortlessly. "So, we're thinking about doing a diversity event," he started with a mischievous grin. "Maybe a diversity party, where everyone can dress in their cultures. What do you think? Let's all go typical." Laughter echoed through the break room, and Michael felt his stomach churn. He looked at Sophia, who also appeared visibly uncomfortable. "That's not funny," she murmured, but the indignation in her voice was drowned out by the laughter of others. "This is what they think diversity is," Michael said, his voice low, yet filled with frustration. "A superficial event that doesn't address real issues. They have no idea what it really means to be part of a minority here." Sophia nodded in agreement. "Yeah, and the worst part is that CEO Rebecca will probably support this idea, ignoring what we really need." Before the story continues, make sure to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any stories. And let us know in the comments which city you're watching this video from. The group dispersed, and Michael decided that he needed to take action. In the next team meeting, he would present his diversity proposal clearly and directly, leaving no room for jokes. He needed his voice to be heard, even if it meant facing Bradley's mockery again. In the meeting, as everyone settled in, the atmosphere was tense. Michael sat between his colleagues, his heart pounding. He knew the presentation would be challenging, but he was determined not to back down. When it was his turn to speak, he took a deep breath, organizing his thoughts. "Good morning, everyone. Today I would like to discuss a proposal to improve diversity and inclusion within our company. I believe we need to go beyond superficial events and truly address the culture of our organization," he began, looking directly at the board. However, Bradley didn't waste any time interrupting. "Diversity? You mean trendy? Let's be honest, Michael. No one really cares about that. What the company needs is more sales, not more diversity." The nervous laughter that followed only frustrated him further. "Bradley, this isn't a matter of trends," Michael replied, his voice steady. "It's about creating an environment where everyone feels valued and respected. If we don't consider this, we'll be losing out on incredible talent." Rebecca, who had remained silent until then, finally spoke up. "I think we need a more practical approach, Michael. What do you suggest?" Michael realized he was in a battleground. He had hoped she would support him, but her indifference further demotivated him. "We need real inclusion training, as well as a space where the voices of minorities can be heard and respected. We can't keep ignoring the reality that many face here," he explained, trying to stay calm. But the expression on Rebecca's face showed she wasn't willing to listen. "Let's see what Bradley has to offer in terms of marketing then," she said, shifting the focus. The meeting continued, while Michael fought against the feeling of defeat. What he didn't know was that this battle was far from over. Michael Carter sat at his desk, his gaze lost on the computer screen. The bluish light of the monitor reflected his pensive expression. He found himself transported back to his childhood in Chicago, where memories mixed with pain and hope. He remembered his mother, a strong and resilient woman who worked long hours as a cleaner. Her image, with a tired face and calloused hands, was a constant in his mind. "You can be whatever you want, Michael," she used to say, while he sat at the table doing his homework. "Always fight for what's right. Don't let the world tell you who you should be." In a vivid flashback, he saw her again, battling exhaustion after a long day at work, but always finding time to encourage him to study and dream big. "You will change history," she said, and those words echoed in his mind like a mantra. Michael closed his eyes, feeling the weight of family expectations on his shoulders. Later, he attended a community event where local leaders gathered to discuss discrimination and the importance of diversity across all sectors. He recalled the vibrant atmosphere, the united voices clamoring for change. There was a man, a former politician, speaking with passion. "True change starts within us. We need to come together and demand our space, not just in society, but in every environment we frequent." Michael stood up in the audience, his voice firm. "We need to make our voices heard. We cannot remain silent in the face of the injustices we encounter every day, especially in the workplace." Applauded by many, he felt a wave of empowerment. The event ignited a flame within him, reigniting his determination to fight against the racism he experienced in the corporate environment. However, when he returned to the present, the shadow of reality enveloped him again. He was surrounded by colleagues who not only ignored his struggle, but also scorned it. The following days were marked by a growing sense of frustration. During a conversation with Sophia, his co-worker, Michael vented. "Sometimes I feel like I'm fighting a lonely battle," he said, his voice heavy with despair. "Bradley and Rebecca not only ignore my ideas, but make a point of belittling me. I wonder if it's worth continuing." Sophia, with a sympathetic look, replied, "Michael, you're not alone. Your struggle is important. The changes we seek in the company won't happen overnight, but your voices and actions are making a difference. We are already more than we were before." "Do you really think I can make a meaningful impact?" he questioned, seeking a thread of hope in her words. "You already are, Michael. Each time you raise your voice, you represent us. What did you learn in your childhood? Fighting for justice is a path full of obstacles, but it's also the right path to take," Sophia said, with determination. The conversation with Sophia sparked a light within Michael. He remembered his mother, her words, the strength she had instilled in him. He couldn't give up now. The fight wasn't just his. It reflected the battles that so many others faced. He resolved that no matter how difficult it was, he wouldn't let Bradley's insults or Rebecca's indifference bring him down. That night, as he looked out of his apartment window, the city shining under the moonlight, Michael made a promise to himself. He committed to fighting for a fairer corporate environment, not just for himself but for all those who felt invisible. "I am the change I want to see," he murmured to himself, feeling a new purpose pulsing within him. The journey was just beginning, and he was determined to be the voice of resistance. The conference room was filled with executives, each with an expression of anticipation and anxiety. The project that Michael Carter had prepared seemed promising, and he was determined to present his ideas with clarity and passion. However, the presence of Bradley Miller, sitting at the table with a disdainful smile, made him feel like a target. The atmosphere was tense, and the fluorescent lights reflected the pressure he felt on his shoulders. Bradley, always ready to attack, didn't miss the opportunity to launch a provocation. As Michael began to present his project aimed at increasing diversity within the company, Bradley raised his hand, interrupting him. "Sorry, Michael, but do you really think that including minorities will help our productivity? This sounds more like an attempt to score points with the board than a viable strategy. What are you going to suggest next? A diversity day in the office?" The mocking tone elicited nervous laughter from some attendees, a laughter that cut through Michael like a knife. He took a deep breath, trying to remain calm. "What I'm proposing is not just a matter of diversity, but of creating an environment where everyone feels valued. Studies show that diverse teams are more innovative and efficient," Michael replied, his voice steady, even though his heart raced. He couldn't let Bradley unsettle him. It was a daily struggle, but he was determined to fight for his place and for those who felt invisible. Rebecca Collins, the CEO, watched the scene with a neutral expression, but there was a palpable tension in her silence. When Michael tried to continue his presentation, she interrupted. "Michael, let's focus on results. We need to implement solutions that will bring immediate outcomes. What you have to offer might be interesting, but it's not what we're looking for at the moment," she said, her tone sounding like a warning. Michael felt frustration bubbling inside him, but he knew he couldn't let anger take over. What Rebecca was doing was a way to silence him, to undermine his ideas as if they held no value. The urge to shout and expose all the injustice grew within him, but he remembered Sophia's words, who always encouraged him to keep his head high and fight with intelligence. "Rebecca, I understand the urgency for results, but I truly believe that diversity not only enriches our culture, but can also be a competitive advantage," Michael insisted, looking directly into his CEO's eyes. He knew he was playing a high-stakes card, but the only alternative was to remain silent and accept oppression. Bradley, realizing that the situation was not going as he expected, decided to intensify his attack. "Michael, you know that the last time we tried something like this, it was a total failure, right? And you're the same person who said that putting a diversity team in charge of a project is a risk, aren't you? What has changed?" His voice was a mix of sarcasm and disdain, but Michael was prepared. "I never said it was a risk, Bradley. What I said is that we need a strategic approach, which is not the same thing. And here's some news. It's time to listen to new voices with new ideas, instead of continuing with actions that don't work," Michael replied, his determination growing in his tone. The room fell silent, and he could feel his colleagues' gazes beginning to shift, some appearing to support him. Rebecca, sensing the tension escalating and that the meeting was veering off course, decided to intervene again. "Let's concentrate on what really matters. Michael, we'll discuss your proposal later. We need something that brings results now." Her words were an attempt to end the discussion before it turned into an open confrontation. But Michael couldn't let it end that way. He knew this was a battle larger than himself. I respect your position, Rebecca, but I can't stay silent. Diversity is not just a matter of image. It's a real necessity that can transform our company. If we're unable to embrace this, then we are truly losing a valuable opportunity, he said, his voice now firm and clear. Deep down, he felt his own courage growing, even as frustration threatened to consume him. The struggle was his, but he was not alone. Sophia was there, and the flame of change he so desperately desired was about to be ignited. Michael Carter was determined to change the narrative that had long surrounded him. The atmosphere in his office was oppressive, as if a cloak of distrust and hostility enveloped him. With a resolute look, he sat at his desk, surrounded by papers, folders, and a laptop that seemed to have become his only ally. It was time to act. He needed to gather evidence that exposed the corrupt practices of Rebecca Collins and Bradley Miller, not just to defend himself, but to fight for a greater cause. "Michael, are you okay?" Sophia asked, her concern evident as she entered his office. "You seem different." "I'm fine," he replied, but the insecurity in his voice betrayed his words. "Actually, I'm getting ready for something big. I need to collect information about what's happening here." Sophia leaned forward, her eyes shining with curiosity. "About what exactly?" "About the decisions that Rebecca and Bradley have made. I'm sure they're doing something wrong, and this affects not just me, but all of us who fight for diversity and inclusion." Michael took a deep breath, feeling the pressure rise. "If I can get the right evidence, I can make a difference." Sophia hesitated for a moment, considering the repercussions it could have. "How do you plan to do that?" "I'm starting to investigate the meetings we've had. I want to review emails, meeting minutes, and any documents that could be relevant. It's a race against time, but I need to do this," he said, his voice firm, revealing a new level of determination. "I can help," Sophia offered, a spark of resolve in her eyes. "If you show me what you need, I can gather information and check the records. I'm not alone in this fight." Michael smiled, feeling warmth grow in his chest. "Thank you, Sophia. Your help means a lot to me. Together, we can uncover something that truly changes things." The two spent hours sifting through digital and printed files, immersed in a sea of information. Michael focused on emails that revealed discussions about the diversity proposal that had been ignored. He scoured the meeting minutes, searching for any mention of decisions that could be seen as biased or manipulative. Sophia, for her part, took meticulous notes, organizing everything into a format that would be easy to present. "Look at this," Michael said, his voice filled with excitement as he discovered an email that seemed to implicate Bradley. "He mentions that he doesn't want the company to engage in actions that promote diversity. This is exactly what I need." Sophia quickly read the email, her eyebrows raising. "This is clear evidence that he's acting against the interests of the company. If you can get a few more pieces like this, you can build a solid case." "That's what I'm counting on," Michael replied, excited by the possibility. "But we need to be careful. If they find out we're onto this, it could be dangerous for us. And if we need to protect ourselves in some way, maybe it's good to have a backup plan," Sophia suggested thoughtfully. "Yes, but first we need to focus on collecting more evidence. The final meeting is our big chance." "I can't let this slip by," Michael said, his face resolute. In the following days, the two continued their relentless search, each discovery fueling Michael's hope. He felt a new strength emerging within him, a determination that propelled him forward. He was not just fighting for himself, but for all those who faced discrimination and injustice in their lives. One night, while they were reviewing documents, Sophia asked, "Do you remember what your mother used to say about never giving up?" Michael nodded, a nostalgic smile creeping onto his face. "She always said that the fight for justice is a marathon, not a sprint. Every step counts, and we must never stop running." "Then let's keep running together," Sophia said, nodding with determination. "We're almost there, and when you present all this, I'll be right by your side." Michael looked at her, and in that moment he knew he was not alone. The struggle for truth and justice was just beginning, and he was ready to face whatever came next. The conference room was electrically charged, as if the tension in the air could be cut with a knife. Michael Carter, with his heart racing and palms sweating, looked at the table where the board was gathered, their faces serious and focused. This was the moment he had always feared and anticipated at the same time. He had prepared for this presentation, but the pressure was immense. This was his moment to shine or to sink. He took a deep breath, trying to calm his nerves as he watched Bradley Miller, his rival, wearing a confident smile. Bradley's arrogance was palpable, and Michael knew he was ready for any attack. Beside him, Rebecca Collins, the CEO, wore a neutral expression, but her eyes seemed to glimmer with malicious anticipation, as if she was eager to see Michael fail. "Good morning, everyone," Michael began, his voice steadier than he felt. "Today I'm going to talk about the importance of diversity and how it can drive our company's success. Additionally, I'd like to share some findings I've made regarding practices that unfortunately do not align with our values of integrity and inclusion." The room fell silent, and Michael felt his colleagues' gazes fixed on him. He recalled Sophia's words, her unwavering support, always urging him to be brave. With that in mind, he continued, "Our team has faced significant challenges, and I've compiled data showing that the lack of diversity in our teams not only harms our image, but also our financial performance." Bradley interrupted, his sarcastic tone echoing in the room. "Oh, sure, another speech about diversity. How about we talk about real results instead of ideals, Michael? No one here wants to hear about your theories." Michael felt a chill in his stomach, but he couldn't let that shake him. "Bradley, if you'll allow me, I'd like to present a case study showing how companies that invest in diversity see a significant increase in innovation and profits. I can show you the data now." "Data, data, data," Bradley replied dismissively, waving his hand. "What you don't understand is that reality is different from theory. Diversity is just a nice word to justify including people who don't have what it takes to succeed here." Michael's heart pounded, but he pressed on. "In fact, it's quite the opposite. Having a diverse team brings different perspectives that can drive innovation and creativity, which is crucial in our industry." He paused, looking directly at the board, seeking support. "Unfortunately, the way the company has handled diversity is disappointing." Rebecca, who had remained silent until then, turned to Michael with a disapproving look. "Michael, we need to focus on practical solutions, not lamentations. I appreciate your presentation, but let's continue with our marketing plan." Michael felt he was losing control of the situation, but he couldn't give up. He remembered his mother's words, which always taught him to fight for what was right. "Rebecca, I have evidence showing the lack of ethics in some of the management practices. Now is the time to act." He opened his laptop and, with shaking hands, displayed the documents on the screen. The silence in the room became deafening. "Here are the emails that clearly show decisions were made based on favoritism and discrimination. This isn't just a diversity issue, it's a matter of ethics and integrity." The room seemed to freeze as the board members stared at the evidence, surprise etched on their faces. Bradley's look of confidence shifted to one of sudden unease. Michael felt a surge of hope. The words he had held back for so long were now being heard. With a stronger voice, he concluded, "We need real change, and it starts here and now." The conference room was filled with a nervous silence, almost palpable. The fluorescent lights reflected off the tense faces of the directors, all turning to Michael, who had just finished his presentation with the revelation of evidence that implicated Rebecca and Bradley. The air felt heavy, and the tension grew with each passing second. Michael felt his heart race, but his determination was stronger than Rebecca, realizing that control of the situation was slipping from her grasp, tried to quickly deflect attention. "Now let's all be rational here," she began, her voice attempting to sound calm but betraying a slight tremor. "These allegations are unfounded and clearly an attempt to discredit our team and our projects. Michael, you don't really think this is a bit extreme, do you?" "Extreme?" Michael responded, his voice firm and clear, echoing in the room. "The evidence speaks for itself. These aren't just assumptions. I have documents, emails, recordings, it's all here." He gestured toward the screen where the evidence was projected. "The issue isn't whether you believe me or not. It's how the company will handle the truth that has been revealed." The directors began to murmur among themselves, some shaking their heads in disapproval, while others seemed to start grasping the gravity of the situation. Bradley, realizing his position was deteriorating rapidly, attempted to defend. "This is ridiculous, Michael. You can't just throw around accusations like this and expect everyone to believe it. You're just trying to promote yourself at the expense of others." "Promote myself? You're missing the point," Michael replied, his voice now raised. "I'm not here to promote myself, I'm here to expose the truth. What you and Rebecca did is not only unethical, but it harms all of us who truly believe in this company's mission." Rebecca, her face pale, tried to maintain her composure. "This is absolutely unacceptable, Michael. You have no idea what you're doing. You're putting your career at risk and tarnishing the reputation of people who have worked hard." "I'm not tarnishing anyone's reputation, Rebecca. I'm simply bringing to light actions that will surely stain the company's reputation if they're not addressed now," Michael replied, his voice more controlled but still filled with fervor. "What's at stake here isn't me, but the integrity of our team and the organization as a whole." The board began to ask questions. "Michael, can you show us more about this evidence? How can we be sure this is legitimate?" one of the directors asked, watching Michael's reaction closely. "Of course," Michael responded, feeling a renewed sense of determination. "Let's start with the emails we exchanged about hiring practices. They clearly demonstrate discrimination and decisions made to favor Serta." As Michael proceeded with his presentation, the reactions around him became increasingly intense. He could see disbelief on some directors' faces, while others seemed shocked. The atmosphere was charged with tension and expectation, and Michael knew he was making history. He was fighting not just for himself, but for all those who had ever been silenced. Seeing that her attempt to divert attention had failed, Rebecca decided to change tactics. "Michael, you can't just destroy the reputation of people who have contributed to the company's success. This is a personal attack, not a professional one," she said, trying to appeal to morality. "This is not a personal attack, Rebecca. It's a matter of ethics. It's about the responsibility we have as leaders. If we don't hold ourselves accountable for our actions, who will?" Michael replied, his voice firm and clear, echoing the truth he had fought so hard to expose. The room was in turmoil, voices beginning to overlap. Michael felt adrenaline coursing through his veins. He was in a battle, and he wasn't willing to back down. He kept his gaze fixed on the board, determined not to let the truth be overshadowed by threats or manipulation. "I am not just an executive in this company," Michael concluded, looking at each board member. "I am a man who refuses to be silenced. And I hope you will also refuse to ignore the truth in front of you." After the intense meeting that changed the company's course, Michael Carter sat in a conference room where the board gathered to discuss the implications of the evidence he had presented. The environment was tense but also filled with anticipation. He could feel the weight of the gazes on him. Some colleagues looked at him with respect, while others still seemed incredulous at the courage he had shown in exposing the truth. "Michael, thank you for joining us," began Alan Price, the chairman of the board, a grey-haired man whose posture exuded authority. "Your presentation was nothing short of extraordinary. You had the courage to do what many would not have the guts to do." Michael nodded, still processing the wave of emotions that washed over him. "Thank you, Alan. The truth needed to be told. It was time to stop the culture of silence that pervaded our company. You not only exposed corruption, but you also showed all of us that diversity and inclusion are not just empty words," Alan continued, as the other board members murmured in agreement. "We are all impressed with how you gathered the evidence and presented it clearly and convincingly." Michael's voice was steady, but his heart raced. He never imagined he would reach this point, that his personal struggle would become a milestone in his career. "I have always believed that diversity is a fundamental value for any organization. We must make space for everyone, and that includes respecting voices that are often silenced." "You are absolutely right," said Laura, one of the HR directors. "And that's why we want to offer you a new leadership position, where you can implement policies that promote a more inclusive environment. What do you think about that?" Michael felt a mix of surprise and gratitude. I don't know what to say. I've always dreamed of having the opportunity to make a difference, but I didn't expect it to happen so quickly." "This is your chance, Michael," Alan said with an encouraging smile. "You deserve it. Your courage has inspired all of us, and more importantly, has inspired the team that works here. We need someone like you to lead this change." Alan's words touched him deeply. He thought about his journey, the humiliations he faced, the support from Sophia, and the ongoing fight for justice. "If I can help create an environment where everyone feels valued and respected, then I am ready to take on this challenge." "That's what we want to hear," Laura said, smiling. "From now on, let's work together to ensure that this company not only promotes diversity, but also lives it at every level. We'll start drafting an action plan for the coming weeks." As the conversation continued, Michael realized he was no longer alone. He had the board's support and, more importantly, the trust of his colleagues. What once felt like a battlefield now transformed into a space of hope and opportunity. At the end of the meeting, as the board members began to rise, Alan turned to Michael and extended his hand. "Congratulations, Michael. You are a true leader, and I look forward to seeing where your vision will take us." Michael shook Alan's hand firmly, a smile of satisfaction forming on his face. "Thank you, Alan. I'm excited to work with all of you and make a difference." As he left the room, Michael felt renewed. He had not only become a voice within the company, but also a symbol of resilience and perseverance. He looked out the window and saw the city of Chicago stretching before him, full of opportunities. The fight for justice and equality was far from over, but now he had the chance to make a difference, and this was just the first of many victories to come. The adrenaline of exposure had coursed through his veins, but now he was anxious to hear what the directors had to say. The board president, David, who had always been a champion of ethics within the company, was the first to break the silence. "Michael, I want to start by congratulating you on the courage you demonstrated today," David said, his voice steady. "It's not easy to stand up against corruption, especially in an environment like ours. Your bravery has not gone unnoticed." Michael looked around the table and saw expressions of respect on the faces of his colleagues. What had once felt like a battlefield now seemed like a space of recognition. "Thank you, David. I just did what was right. These practices cannot continue if we want to be a company that values ethics and diversity." Michael's words echoed in the room. He felt that he had finally found his place, not just as an executive, but as an advocate for change. Miriam, one of the human resources directors, interjected, "Michael, your presentation not only revealed the truth, but also showed us the urgent need to reassess our diversity policies. We need leaders like you to guide us through this process." "We're ready to hear your proposals," added Tom, the finance director, nodding his head. "It's time for us to make a real change." A smile formed on Michael's face. The idea of leading a new initiative was exactly what he had hoped for, but hearing it from the board was a validation of his struggles and efforts. "I accept this responsibility with gratitude. I believe we can create an environment where everyone feels valued and has equal opportunities." After the meeting, Michael left the room with a renewed energy. He knew his fight was not over, but the change he had always desired was within reach. As he walked down the hallway, he encountered Sophia, who was waiting for him eagerly. "Michael, I heard everything. You were amazing," she exclaimed, her face glowing with excitement. "You really changed the dynamics of the company." "Thank you, Sophia. But this isn't just about me, it's about all of us. We need to ensure that the change is real and lasting," Michael replied, feeling grateful for her support. "I couldn't have done this without you. Your trust in me meant a lot." Sophia smiled, but there was a seriousness in her eyes. "And now what are you going to do? What are your plans for this new initiative?" "I want to involve all departments, listen to employees about their experiences, and build something that truly meets our needs," Michael said, already envisioning the steps he needed to take. "We need a genuine commitment, not superficial actions like those suggested by Bradley. I want everyone to feel they have a voice." Over the following weeks, Michael worked tirelessly. He organized meetings with employees at different levels, gathering ideas and suggestions. The response was overwhelming. People were eager for change and wanted to be part of the process. Michael began to see a new culture emerging, one where previously silenced voices started to be heard. One day, while reviewing the collected data, David entered his office. "Michael, I heard you're organizing an event to discuss diversity. Can I help in any way?" "Of course, David. It would be great to have your presence. I want everyone on the board involved to show that this is a priority for the company," Michael said, feeling strengthened by the offer of support. "Count me in. We need to ensure this isn't just a passing trend but a lasting commitment," David replied with a serious look. With the support of the board and the involvement of his colleagues, Michael was ready to transform the company. He knew his journey was far from over, but now he had the strength and recognition needed to continue fighting. He felt stronger and more confident than ever, determined to not only change his life, but the lives of many others who, like him, faced similar challenges. The fight for justice and equality was just beginning, and Michael Carter was at the forefront. On a bright night, the company auditorium was filled with employees, all eager for the awards ceremony that would celebrate efforts toward diversity and inclusion. Michael Carter, now promoted to a leadership position after the fall of Rebecca and Bradley, felt a mix of pride and anxiety. He had become a symbol of resistance, but there was still a weight in his heart, a feeling that things might not be as simple as they seemed. As the awards were announced, Michael watched the familiar faces around him, many of whom had been indifferent to him before. Now he was the center of attention, receiving a standing ovation. However, his mind was divided between celebration and the worry that had accompanied him in recent days. The event was nearing its end when suddenly his name was called to receive a special award for his courage and dedication to diversity. After a brief thank you speech, he turned to the crowd, his eyes shining with determination. Amid the warm applause, Michael felt radiant. After receiving the award, he stepped off the stage and was surrounded by colleagues congratulating him. However, one familiar figure was missing: Sophia. He searched for her among the crowd but couldn't find her. What should have been one of the happiest moments of his life began to be overshadowed by a growing unease. He decided he needed to talk to her. As the party continued, Michael stepped away from the group and found Sophia in a more secluded corner of the hall. She was alone, her head down and shoulders slumped. As soon as he saw her, a wave of concern washed over him. "Sophia, are you okay?" he asked, his voice soft yet filled with curiosity. She looked up, and Michael immediately noticed the anguished expression in her eyes. "I'm not, Michael. We need to talk." Her tone made him feel a chill in his stomach. "What happened?" The young woman hesitated, seeming to struggle with her words. I don't know how to say this. I made a mistake, a serious mistake." "What are you talking about?" Michael pressed, the tension growing between them. Sophia took a deep breath as if preparing for a painful confession. I worked with Bradley. I was an informant, but not in the way you're thinking. I was under pressure, and at first I thought I could help the company somehow, but then I realized that what I was doing was wrong. I didn't want you to know." Michael felt as if his world was crumbling. He took a step back, surprised. "You worked with him. How could you do this to me?" The betrayal hurt. He had trusted her, and now everything felt like a huge sham. "I deeply regret it. When I saw what was happening, when I saw you being attacked and humiliated, I realized I was on the wrong side. I couldn't stay silent any longer. I decided to help you, but you need to understand that I was scared. They threatened my position in the company, and I didn't know who to turn to," Sophia explained, tears in her eyes. "And now that you've told me this, what am I supposed to do?" Michael asked, his voice trembling. "You've put me in a difficult position. I don't know if I can trust you again." Sophia stepped closer, her hands outstretched in a gesture of pleading. "Please, Michael, I don't want you to see me as a traitor. I want to do what's right. I want to help expose the truth. If you give me a chance, I promise I'll do whatever it takes to correct my mistake." Michael watched her, the internal struggle evident in his gaze. He remembered all the hardships he had faced, how the fight for justice was complex and filled with nuances. "I don't know, Sophia. That trust has been broken. But maybe you really do want to change things. Are you willing to risk everything for it?" "Yes," she replied, the sincerity in her voice making her seem vulnerable. "I'm willing to do whatever it takes to fix this. The fight for justice is too important to ignore." A heavy silence hung between them as Michael pondered her words. He realized that the fight for justice wasn't just about victories and mistakes, but also about forgiveness and reconciliation. "All right," he finally said, his voice steady. "I'll give you a chance, but know that it won't be easy. We'll need to work together and be transparent with each other." Sophia nodded, a glimmer of hope in her eyes. "Thank you, Michael. I won't let you down again." As they moved away, a new determination began to bloom in their hearts, both aware that the fight for justice and truth was just beginning. Michael felt that, despite the betrayal, there was an opportunity for transformation, not just for him, but for all those facing discrimination and injustice. Together they could be the change they so desperately wanted to see. And that brings us to the end of this moving story. If you enjoyed it and want to see more stories like this, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification bell. Right now, there's a playlist of videos on your screen. If you want to keep watching these touching stories, just click on it to start. And now, tell us in the comments which city you're watching from and leave a like to support our work. Now, here's a sincere question. Do you agree with what happened in the story? We want to know your opinion. Until the next video.